the morning after the night before, hangovers, tears, all sorts. I have to admit it's quite difficult to pick myself up today, let alone anyone else. The first work call I had this morning was with a colleague of mine who's based in London. His 9-year-old son went to bed last night in absolute floods of tears, inconsolable at the thought that England couldn't quite get over the line and that his dreams had been dashed in such a cruel fashion. He's spent the last 6 weeks learning about the England team. He knows all the stats, he knows all the players now, outside kicking the ball around in the garden. But it ended with tears, and I'm going to come back to that shortly, or at the end of this. I'm also not going to talk about the idiots in English society on this call. They don't deserve any airtime as far as I'm concerned. But it's been a glorious summer. Smiles on faces, people coming together, communities coming together, having a party, having a laugh, sticking on an England shirt, tooting their horns, doing whatever they're doing just to show their joy and expressing how happy they are because this England team has done so well, because this tournament has been so much fun and so enjoyable. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It's caught me over here in Spain. It's caught England fans all over the world that I know. And I wish I'd been in London to experience some of the scenes that I've seen on social media, because the happy scenes that I've seen on social media look absolutely joyous. Italy were worthy winners as far as I'm concerned. They were the best team in the tournament, as I'd said before. Up to this game, I'd hoped that we would overtake them and become the best team in the tournament, but it wasn't quite to be. I thought the way that they dealt with a really difficult first 20 minutes when England were exceptional. Really strong start from England, buoyed by the home crowd. The way they regathered themselves at half time, and the football that they played, the bravery that they showed on the ball, the patience that they showed, the defensive nous that they showed with the two granddads at the back who were phenomenal, to be honest. Mancini's done an amazing job from a side that didn't qualify for the World Cup, and I'm sure Italy is rightly proud. I've seen some things today about not criticising this England team, not criticising Gareth Southgate. I don't agree with some of the stuff that's on social media. There's a line between criticism and abuse, and I'll never cross that. I'd hope I'd never cross that. But I also don't agree with the notion that you shouldn't criticise Gareth Southgate or the England players, because this is what they're there for. They're not there to be criticised, but they're there in the public eye, and they know when they start this journey as a footballer, as a coach, as a sports person in the public eye, that they're going to be criticised. And people like me, I hope, can help the whole process by maybe criticising in a constructive way. In terms of the game, we didn't really have enough ball retention higher up the pitch. We didn't have a threat up the pitch. Great start. Tactically, it looked like he played a blinder yet again. Trippier I thought he played Trippier to try and nullify Insigne down their left-hand side, and he did that. He had a really good game, Trippier, but it turned out that it was actually an attacking threat that Trippier posed that was the biggest plus from his selection, because he got in time and time again, 3 or 4 times in that first 15-20 minutes. It was almost like waves of attacks down that right-hand side, and the overloads that were created when England switched the ball from left to right were really good. I thought the outstanding defensive work that the whole team did kind of epitomised what England have been about in this tournament, about safety, about control, about low-risk football. And Declan Rice was inspirational that first half, and also very good driving with the ball as well. I think he is turning into a national hero, as is Calvin Phillips, who I thought, when Rice went off, Phillips took the responsibility really well, and he continued to probe, looked after the responsibility from a defensive point of view really well, and I thought he had a great tournament. But we needed more ball retention and threat further up the pitch. In my opinion, he should have made earlier subs. I think when Italy were getting on top towards the end of the first half, I think they should have been planning to create more options up top. I firmly believe that's as a result of, or the situation was made worse by their confidence. That's Gareth Southgate and Steve Holland and his coaching staff. Their confidence in Raheem Sterling and Harry Kane, and their insistence really on keeping them on the pitch, because it really left you with one attacking sub to change. If that was what they were looking to do, and when you know that you're not going to take off two players who, to be honest, didn't perform yesterday. Sterling's been brilliant throughout the tournament. He wasn't brilliant yesterday. Italy defended superbly against him. They nullified the threat that he poses. Harry Kane was excellent for 15-20 minutes, and then for me didn't do anything for the rest of the game apart from put his penalty away. But it is what it is. That strategy has paid dividends to this point. It didn't pay dividends last night, and Gareth Southgate will probably be the first to accept that. In retrospect, he probably could have done things differently. The final thing I want to say about Gareth Southgate, and where I think we need to work on, and where we didn't get it quite right last night, leaving the penalty takers substitutions till the last minute meant that they took their penalties cold. Quite apart from the fact I think both of those players would have actually given us a change up from Sterling and Kane at any point from about an hour onwards, really. They went on the pitch and took the biggest penalty kick of their life, cold, without having had any opportunity to warm up, any opportunity to get into the game, to feel the occasion, to feel a few touches of the ball, to make some movements that would warm their body and probably acclimatise them to it. And whilst they were probably very good working cold in the training sessions and the practices that they put together, I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think that they've got to go on there and be given a chance to feel the temperature of the game before they go into the penalties. So I think that was a mistake, quite frankly. In terms of the actual structure, the penalty takers, the decisions to pick certain players at certain moments in terms of the first five, that's the process. Anyone who's criticising the other players for not stepping up, this is a process that they will all have understood, and they will all, and Gareth Southgate will have, with his coaching staff, analysed the quality of the penalties that they took, and as a result that he would have known before the game exactly what he was looking for and the priority given the players that were still available to him, that were still on the pitch at the end of the game. So I wouldn't criticise him for that whatsoever, because that's his decision, and I think it's much better to do that than to see what has happened in the past, which is sometimes they'll go around and say, do you fancy one, do you fancy one, do you fancy one, and you see people, shrink or step up, and I don't think that's how it should be. I think that all the players should understand exactly how the process is going to work. I'm sure they did. So it was a process. I just think it was more about the timing of the two young kids coming on at the end, which was a problem. But all that said, if England had won on penalties last night, Gareth Southgate would be hailed as a hero, albeit in a game that was a bit cagey and a performance that was cagey. So we got to the final of the European Championships against a very good Italy side that didn't beat us in 90 minutes, that didn't actually create that much in terms of open play opportunities. They scored from a set piece, a third phase of a set piece as well, by the way. So that I say third phase because when it gets to the third phase in the penalty area, there's been an element of luck about the goal, about the ricochets, about the way that the ball breaks, and that was true. We didn't get opened up by them last night. The only player who looked like doing that for them was Chiesa, who I thought was just about the player of the tournament. So those fine margins define everything. Yesterday I talked about Gareth Southgate being hailed as a hero, but that public opinion would turn, and public opinion has clearly turned quickly from what I've read this morning, most of which, to be honest, I just ignore. In terms of lessons for the future, I said last night that I would really like to see this England team create more passing lines, to have more proactive movement ahead of the ball. There's two times when we lost possession on the edge of our area towards the end of the first half, and I'm convinced that it was simply because there was not enough proactive movement, and that proactive movement can literally be a sidestep half a yard to be able to bounce the ball backwards to play out, or forwards to play forward, and we just don't seem to have that. We seem to be very we almost work around the midfield area. We go back, we go across, we go down the side. Our fullbacks have been very influential. The central midfielders have rarely broken lines throughout the course of the tournament. And I'd like to see movement ahead of the ball. I always like to see 1 or 2 short passing options, and then look at an option long, so not everyone's coming towards the ball. But if you looked at the way that Italy manipulated possession yesterday, Jorginho is a superb technician. He's a register, as the Italians call it, a deep line playmaker, and he dominated possession. Insigne's movement inside, and the fact that he stood up and was brave to go and get on the ball and start to probe. They just started to apply pressure in the same way, frankly, that Croatia did with Modric and Rakitic in the semi-final, and that was disappointing for me because we didn't have an answer to a situation that we've been faced with before. So I'd like to see more passing lines and more ability in the middle of the park. In terms of succession planning for Harry Kane, he's been poor this tournament, and I'm really disappointed that his performances, I think, have taken away from England's games at times. That said, you counter that with the fact that he scored goals. It's what you like. Some people are going to say he's had a great tournament. I absolutely don't think he has. I think he's played well for about 15% of the time he's been out on the pitch, and he hasn't done enough. In terms of game management, I just talked about it with the Croatia game. We didn't manage that situation particularly well, and I'm really disappointed that we haven't demonstrated progress, because we've demonstrated progress in so many scenarios, but you would have thought that this team, the majority of which were on the pitch for that, would have been ready for that, and they weren't. They simply weren't. So those are areas that I think we've got to work on in the future. We've got a fantastic defensive structure, the best in world football in my opinion, but that comes at a price. The more risk that you take, then the less the defensive solidity you have, and the balance is where the great managers set themselves apart, and that's something that Gareth Southgate and his team have got to work on. Finally, on Southgate, he is a great leader, great human being, consistent, honest. His responses after the game, the support he shows his players are just consistent. There's nothing new there. That's exactly the same as you saw years ago with the under-21s, even back to his time as a player. The guy's values are unbelievable, and what he has done and that group have done is create a group that I think are going to take English football to the next level, or already have taken English football to the next level. But you're actually going to see some leaders out of that group. Calvin Phillips, a brilliant example. From over the course of the tournament, that guy has turned from a player with potential, who potentially at times would make decisions that were rash or whatever. He's the first person to go across to Saka after he misses a penalty, and that's just one thing that's been highlighted on social media today. But there was so much more to the maturity of Calvin Phillips' performances. John Stones and Harry Maguire were immense in my book. I take those two over Chiellini and Bonucci. That's my honest opinion. They're better. Maybe in the big moment, Chiellini and Bonucci had more influence, but I genuinely think that's how highly I rate John Stones and Maguire as a defensive partnership, or in the three with Walker, who, in all fairness, I'd say Walker probably performed better than the pair of them. So Gareth Southgate's got unbelievable options there. Trippier was superb whenever he was called upon in this tournament. So was Luke Shaw. What he's creating here is the basis and the foundation, not just from a football point of view, but in terms of the personalities. You have got 4 or 5 leaders who are gradually becoming even more influential. The likes of Jordan Henderson and Harry Kane will gradually, fade into the background of this England group, I think. But it's exciting to see what's coming through. Gareth Southgate's got to find a way to do more, to keep improving, and I'm sure he'll do that. But his leadership, once again, is something that there's no end to my admiration for that man. I'm happy to criticise him because he's not perfect, and he does make mistakes, and there are areas that I think he can do better. Am I the right person to criticise him? Absolutely not. I'm not the most qualified. These are just my opinions, whether you like them or not. But what I will say is that I'm very happy with that guy leading the nation. I think he'll probably go to the World Cup, and then that'll be him. Whatever happens, that's my gut feel, because I think he'll feel like his tenure has been long enough. Because this has got to take a lot out of you. Even a guy who's as steady and considered as he is, I'm sure that it will take its toll on him over time, and also his messages will gradually soften. The players will start to crave something different, and everyone has a shelf life. But I think the job is done so far. If you plot our course from Iceland to Russia in 2018, to the Nations League, which I think was good experience for the continued development of this team, and then this tournament and this summer. Gareth Southgate's the second best manager England's ever had in terms of results and progress. I don't think many people can argue with that. Whether or not you think he's up a good group or a bad group or in a different group, or he's had easy runs or whatever, I don't subscribe to the easy run logic, because try telling France that with Switzerland. These tournaments are full of good teams once you get towards the end. We've beaten Denmark, we've beaten Germany, we've beaten Croatia, we've beaten Czech Republic, and we haven't been beaten in the whole tournament. We've conceded 2 goals. We probably just haven't played and tapped into the attacking potential that this team has fully, and that's probably where the challenge is. To finish off, those kids crying in bed last night are the future of this country, of England, of a proud nation. Some of those will go on to be players that will play in tournaments in 15 years, 10, 15 years. But whatever happens, they'll be outside kicking their balls about this week, saying that they're Jordan Henderson or Harry Maguire or Raheem Sterling or Marcus Rashford or Bukayo Saka, and they'll be the heroes. They'll be the heroes, and they've inspired a generation, not just a generation of young kids, people like me, who I've been blown away. I was in tears yesterday reading Harry Maguire's parents' words about Harry Maguire. I was almost in tears when I saw how joyous everyone was enjoying the preparation and the build-up to the game, with the exception of the idiots, because it just made me so happy to see England happy, English people happy, English football helping make English people happy. So think about those kids crying, think about the legacy, think about where that started and the man that started with. Go back to Gareth Southgate. What he has done for this country is immense. All credit to him, all credit to the players. I hope that they get treated with the respect that they deserve, because their work has been outstanding, and I really, really hope that he can continue the work that he's done and the progress that he's achieved and take us to the World Cup final and go one stage further. It's absolutely not an easy task. In my opinion, it's the toughest job in football, being the England manager. He's doing a pretty good job of it. So have a good summer, everyone, and let's see where he takes us from here.